You wake up because your body is done sleeping. No alarm, no schedule, no place you have to be. You sit up and you ask one question, what do I want to do today? Hold on to that feeling, because your actual morning looked nothing like it. An alarm, a calendar, Slack, email, a meeting about a meeting. You'll do it 5 days a week for about 40 years, 90,000 hours of your life. Sold. For about 300,000 years, every human woke up to that first morning, the free one. No boss, no wage, no job, because jobs didn't exist yet. So what did they actually do all day? The honest answer is stranger and a little more uncomfortable than the internet wants you to believe. Most people assume the answer is obvious. They survived. They scraped by. Every waking hour was a desperate fight against starvation. That's the story we were taught, and it's wrong. In 1963, a young anthropologist named Richard Lee went to the Kalahari Desert in Botswana to measure it. He followed the Ju hoansi, say it Ju hoansi, one of the last groups still living the way humans lived before farming. He didn't guess. He counted hours. And what he found broke the story we tell ourselves. Adults spent about 15 to 20 hours a week getting food. 2.5 days. The rest of the week was theirs. And here's what makes that number hard to dismiss. It shows up everywhere. The Hadza in Tanzania, the Ashe in Paraguay, the Martu in Australia. Different continents, different climates, different animals, same result. 15 to 20 hours. The anthropologist Marshall Sahlins gave it a name in 1972. He called these people the original affluent society. Not because they had much, because they wanted little and got it fast. You're probably working double that, maybe triple, once you count the commute and the email you answer in bed. But anthropology is recent, you might think. How do we know humans 30,000 years ago lived the same way? The answer is in their bones. Line up the skeleton of a hunter-gatherer next to an early farmer, and the difference is brutal. The farmer is shorter. Their spine shows arthritis from the same motion repeated 10,000 times. Their teeth are full of cavities from a life of grain. They died younger. The hunter-gatherer, taller, stronger, better teeth. Their bones say they worked less, not more. And then there's the thing survival can't explain. Art. In 1994, explorers crawled into Chauvet cave in southern France and found horses and lions and rhinos painted across the walls, with shading, with movement, with real skill, around 36,000 years ago. Someone spent hours in the dark by firelight painting animals, not for food, for beauty, because they had the time. Now, here's the part the feel-good version skips, and we are not going to skip it. If you're picturing paradise, stop. There were no antibiotics. A cut on your foot could turn into a fever, and the fever could kill you in a week. There was no dentist for the abscess, no surgeon for the broken leg. Many children, by some estimates close to half, never reached the age of 5. Childbirth killed mothers. Winter in the north was not a cozy fireside. It was a slow argument with death, and just move somewhere warm was not an option, because somewhere warm already had people in it. And sometimes those people were the danger. The romantic story leaves out the rival band over the ridge, the raid. The spear thrown by another human. We have skeletons with arrowheads still buried in them. Being part of the group kept you alive. Being cast out of it was a death sentence, so no. This was not a lost paradise, and anyone who tells you our ancestors simply had it better is comparing the best parts of their world to the worst parts of yours. But here is the part that survives all of that. Take away the disease, the danger, the cold, and you are still left with one stubborn fact that will not go away. When they weren't fighting to stay alive, and most days they weren't, they had something we have almost completely lost. Time that belonged to no one but themselves. Let's be honest about that 15 hours too, because someone always points this out, and they're right. Getting food wasn't the only work. There were tools to sharpen, hides to scrape, baskets to weave, shelters to patch, firewood to haul. Add it all up, and the real number climbs, maybe 25 or 30 hours of effort a week, and it is still half of what you do. But here's what's strange about that work. It had no boss, no clock, no supervisor counting your minutes. You sharpened a spear because a sharp spear fed you, and because doing it well earned respect. The reward was direct. Nobody was skimming the value of your afternoon off the top. Take hunting! You'd think the smart move is an ambush. Wait, strike, done. But humans are persistence hunters. They jogged after an animal for hours, through the heat of the day, until it overheated and collapsed, because we are the one animal that can sweat and run at the same time. Slow, patient, relentless. So why run for hours when you could just set a trap? Anthropologists still argue about it. I have my theory. Drop yours in the comments. So picture the actual day. Dawn. Last night's fire is still smoking. Someone feeds it. You eat leftover meat, a handful of nuts, some berries from yesterday. Breakfast is slow and it's social. People talk. Nobody is rushing. By mid-morning, maybe a small group leaves to hunt. Maybe not. If the hunt went well 2 days ago, you might not leave camp at all. You might spend the morning making something with your hands. And by early afternoon, the productive part of the day is basically over. What happens next is the part modern people find almost impossible to understand. Mostly, nothing and everything. People sit in the shade and talk. They nap. They pick through each other's hair. They play with the kids. The anthropologist James Sussman found that the Ju hoansi spent something like 6 hours a day simply being with each other. Not working, not sleeping, talking, laughing, telling jokes. Because when there is no money and no police, the only thing keeping you alive is whether people like you. So you pour yourself into them. This, by the way, is why loneliness wrecks you. For 300,000 years, being disliked meant being unfed. Then the sun goes down and something shifts. In 2014, the anthropologist Polly Wiesner published a study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. She had recorded hundreds of hours of Ju hoansi conversation. During the day, the talk was practical. Who saw tracks? Who wasn't sharing fairly? But at night around the fire, 81% of it turned to stories. Myths, ancestors, jokes, the invisible world. This is why you crave a film before bed. It's fire time. You never stopped needing it. And they didn't even sleep the way you do. In 2001, the historian Roger Eckerksch dug through old diaries, court records, and medical texts and found something we forgot. Before electric light, people slept in 2 shifts. First sleep, about 4 hours. Then an hour or 2 awake in the dark, to think, to pray, to talk. Then second sleep, 4 more. So the next time you wake at 3 in the morning and call it insomnia. That isn't broken. That is ancient. Your body is keeping a watch nobody ever told it to stop keeping. So here's the question that should bother you. If this life was healthier, freer, and more social, then what happened? Why did we leave? About 10,000 years ago, in the Fertile Crescent, humans started planting seeds. And in 1987, the scientist Jared Diamond wrote that this agriculture, the thing we proudly call the dawn of civilization, was the worst mistake in the history of the human race. Here's his case. Farming let you feed more people. More people meant you needed more food. More food meant more farming. Within a few generations, the population exploded, and there was no going back, because now there were far too many mouths to feed by hunting alone. You were locked in, and farming was brutal. Plowing, planting, weeding, hauling, guarding the harvest from animals and from other humans. The bones say it plainly. The first farmers were sicker, shorter, and died younger than the foragers who came before them. Now, defenders will tell you it wasn't a mistake. It was inevitable. That once the population grew, there was no other choice. And maybe they're right, but inevitable and good are not the same word. We didn't trade up. We traded a 15-hour week for a job that never ends, and then we called it progress. And that brings us to the thing almost nobody will say out loud. Rest is not laziness. For our species, rest is the default. For 300,000 years, doing nothing on a warm afternoon was not a moral failing, it was Tuesday. The guilt you feel when you sit still, that little voice that says you should be productive, that you're wasting the day, that voice is not your conscience. It's conditioning. It was installed in you, recently, on purpose. You make art if you can find an hour after work. They made art because they had the day. You sleep in 1 block and call waking at 3 a.m. A disorder. They slept in 2 and used the gap to dream. You chase success by a scoreboard someone else invented. They woke up every single morning already enough, with nothing to prove to anyone. We are not a different species. Your body is the same body that ran down antelope and painted lions by firelight. It was built for short weeks, long afternoons, and faces it knows by name. We took that animal, sat it in a chair under a fluorescent light for 90,000 hours, and told it the restlessness it feels is its own fault. They were already living the life you are working your whole life to retire into. They just never had to earn it. And the strangest part, you're the one who thinks you're free.